Hello everybody and welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to make some rich raspberry chocolate cakes, individual cakes, and I'm making them in a muffin tin, but they will be a dense chocolate cake with raspberry jam stirred throughout the batter, and then they'll be coated on the top with some raspberry jam and then have some chocolate on top of that as well. So I start off by preheating my oven to 185 degrees Celsius, that's 165 Celsius with a fan, 365 Fahrenheit, and I've lined a muffin tin with some paper cases. So I'll go on to the ingredients, and for the ingredients I have 150 grams, which is 1 cup of plain flour. That's based on scooping packed flour into a 250 milliliter cup. I have 100 grams, 3.5 ounces, or about 10 tablespoons of dark chocolate. That's if your chocolate pieces are this size, but 3.5 ounces. I have 100 grams of raspberry jam, which is 5 tablespoons. I have 150 grams, 3/4 of a cup of caster sugar, 2 medium eggs, which would be large in the USA, 100 grams, which is 7 tablespoons of unsalted butter, 4 grams, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then to go on the top, I have 60 grams, 3 tablespoons of raspberry jam, 100 grams, 3.5 ounces again of dark chocolate, and 15 millilitres, 1 tablespoon of flavourless oil. And the first thing I'm going to do is to put the butter and the first 100 grams of chocolate into a pan, and I'm going to put that onto another pan of simmering water, and I'm going to allow that to melt, and I'll stir it until the butter melts into the chocolate and it's completely melted. So I have the chocolate melted with the butter there, and I'm just leaving that to one side, and I'm going to whisk together using my hand mixer, though you could do it by hand, the sugar and the eggs until they're nice and pale. So that's nicely mixed in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour the chocolate mixture in, and I'm going to whisk that, but I'm going to start off with just a little bit of it so that it doesn't cook the eggs, but it tempers them, and then I'll pour the rest in. And then I'm going to put the 100 grams of raspberry jam in as well, and I'm going to mix that around. And then I'm going to put the baking powder and the salt into the flour and give it a quick stir around, and I'm going to sift that over the top and fold it in. So I'll just fold that in. And with that mixed in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to spoon that into my muffin cases, and I need about 57 grams in each one just to make it level, but you can just divide it by eye. And do it in all of them. And with that batter in the 12 cases fairly evenly divided, I'm going to put those into the oven and I'm going to bake them for 25 minutes. Then I'll test them to see that a skewer comes out clean. They should be quite dense, but it should come out relatively clean. I don't want to bake them for much longer than that because it will begin to dry them out. But if it doesn't come out clean, I will bake them for a couple of minutes longer. So once they've baked and they've cooled down, I'll come back and we'll go on to the next step. I baked the chocolate and raspberry cakes, or raspberry chocolate cakes, for 25 minutes. I tested with a skewer, which came out clean. So I've put them onto a wire rack and they're still warm, but I'm going to brush them with raspberry jam just to give a coating all over the top. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave those until they have cooled down completely and the jam has begun to set up a little bit on the top. And at that stage I will put my chocolate and my tablespoon of oil over a pot of water again, and I will melt that down so that that's ready to go onto the top of the cakes. Then I'll come back and we'll put the chocolate on the top. So I've melted my chocolate with a tablespoon of flavourless oil, and now I'm just going to spoon that onto the top of each of the cakes. Now you could pipe this, you could let it cool down a little bit more than it is already, but I'm just going to use a teaspoon and spoon enough on to coat each one. And then I'll set that to one side for the chocolate to set, and do the same with the remainder. And then when they've set, I'll come back and we'll have a taste. I left the rich raspberry and chocolate cakes for the chocolate topping to set up. I actually popped them into the fridge just for a little while, just to speed that process up. So this is what they look like now, and I've taken two out of the papers and I've cut one in half so that you can see that it's nice and dense and quite closely packed. which is what I expected it to be. I can see the layer of raspberry jam on there, and of course there's the raspberry jam within the batter as well. So I'll have a taste of the other half of that one. It's very, very rich. You get the lovely flavour of the raspberry jam and the richness of that dark chocolate. And I should say, how dark your chocolate is up to you. You could use 51% or 70% or whatever. Some people like semi-sweet, some people like bittersweet, but whatever you like is perfectly okay. So the cake is nice and moist, and if I just taste the cake by itself without any topping, it has a nice flavour to it. I can taste the raspberry jam inside it, and the faintness of the chocolate. It's not overpowering. It's the chocolate on the top which gives you the main flavour of chocolate. So these are actually very simple to make. They are very rich, which is why I made individual ones rather than a large one, which might then get cut into rather large slices. So I think one of these would be more than enough for most people. So, very simple recipe. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, please give me the thumbs up below and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there will be an eye that you can click on, and that will take you to a link for the recipe, and I'll put a link below the video as well. And I'll be back with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.